Crystal Rogers was a 35-year-old mother of five from Bardstown, Kentucky, who vanished under mysterious circumstances in 2015. Her disappearance on a 4th of July weekend shocked her tight-knit community and sparked a years-long quest for answers. Rogers' car was found abandoned on the side of the Bluegrass Parkway with a flat tire, the engine still running, and her purse and cell phone left inside. This eerie discovery turned a missing person case into a chilling mystery, one that would haunt the town of Bardstown for nearly a decade. Crystal Rogers grew up in the small town of Bardstown, known as the bourbon capital of the world. At 35 years old, Crystal was a devoted mother of 5 children. She lived with her longtime boyfriend, Brooks Huck, and their 2-year-old son, along with her other children from previous relationships. Friends and family described Crystal as a caring, attentive mom who would never disappear on her own accord. Crystal's close-knit family immediately knew something was wrong when they couldn't reach her over the 2015 Independence Day weekend. Her sister noted that Brooks's explanations for Crystal's absence didn't add up, reflecting the family's early suspicions. Crystal was officially reported missing by her mother on July 5, 2015, after 2 agonizing days with no contact. That same day, a family member discovered Crystal's maroon Chevrolet Impala along the Bluegrass Parkway with a flat tire. The keys were still in the ignition, and her belongings, including her purse and phone, were found inside the car, a sign that this was no simple roadside mishap. To her loved ones, these details were terrifying. Crystal would never have willingly left her car under those conditions, let alone without telling anyone. The last known sighting of Crystal Rogers was on the evening of July 3, 2015. According to her boyfriend Brooks Huck, they spent that rainy night at his family's farm for what was supposed to be a special date. Huck later told police that around midnight they returned home, and Crystal was up playing games on her phone when he went to bed. He claimed that when he awoke the next morning, Crystal was gone, and so was her car. At first, Brooks said he wasn't alarmed, suggesting Crystal might have gone to stay at a cousin's house for the night, something he implied she had done before. But as the hours passed on July 4th with no word from her, Crystal's family became increasingly frantic. By July 5th, they involved law enforcement, and the missing person investigation began in earnest. The discovery of Crystal's car that afternoon transformed the case. It was found near mile marker 14 on the Bluegrass Parkway, a desolate stretch of highway just outside Bardstown. The car had a flat tire, which appeared to have forced it to the roadside, and it was still unlocked with the keys in place. Inside were all the signs of an interrupted life. Her cell phone, handbag, and other personal items sat untouched. There were no obvious indications of a struggle at the scene, but the situation looked undeniably suspicious. The abandoned car with a flat tire seemed staged to look like a simple breakdown. Friends and family insisted Crystal would have called for help if she had a flat, not wandered off into the night. From the very start, foul play was strongly suspected in Crystal's disappearance. Right away, suspicion turned toward Crystal's boyfriend, Brooks Huck, who was the last person known to see her alive. In fact, Brooks was the one person who didn't join the massive volunteer searches that the family and community organized in the days after Crystal went missing. Crystal's family found Brooks' demeanor and actions odd. As her sister Brooke Ballard noted, quote, "He has not offered once to search or help or do anything for the family." On July 8, 2015, just 5 days after Crystal vanished, Nelson County Sheriff's investigators brought Brooks in for questioning. During that interview, a dramatic incident occurred. Brooks's brother, Nick Huck, who was then an officer with the Bardstown Police Department, called Brooks's cell phone in the middle of the interview. Despite being a cop himself, He allegedly warned his brother not to speak with the police. This interference immediately raised eyebrows, and investigators suspected that Nick was trying to help his brother thwart the investigation. As the probe continued, more red flags emerged. Brooks Huck agreed to take a polygraph test, but the results came back inconclusive. While polygraph tests themselves can't actually reveal if someone isn't telling the truth, they are an investigative tool. If someone engages in known deceptive tactics while taking one, it's generally not a good sign as to their innocence. Meanwhile, Nick Huck also underwent an FBI-administered lie detector test regarding his knowledge of the case. He failed that polygraph as well, again by showing signs of deception done to trick the test administrator. By October 2015, Nick Huck was fired from the Bardstown Police Department for interfering with the investigation and violating department policies. No charges were ever brought against Nick, but his actions early on fueled widespread speculation of a cover-up within the Huck family. Investigators scoured the Huck family's properties for clues. One lead involved Brooks's grandmother, Anna Whitesides, and a car she owned. Whitesides sold her white Buick shortly after Rogers went missing, raising suspicions it might have been used to dispose of Crystal's body. She invoked her Fifth Amendment right and refused to testify about the car, leaving that lead unresolved. Detectives eventually searched the vehicle and related properties for any trace evidence, but if they found anything significant, it was never disclosed to the public. This was one of many frustrating dead ends Bardstown authorities encountered as they chased leads in the early years of the case. While leads came and went, Crystal's family, the Ballards, refused to give up. Her parents, Tommy and Sherry Ballard, became outspoken advocates for finding Crystal and keeping her story alive. In the months after Crystal's disappearance, the Ballards organized volunteer search parties and plastered the area with flyers. They even erected a sign along the Bluegrass Parkway near the spot where her car was found, pleading for information. They were convinced that Brooks Huck was responsible and were frustrated by the lack of an arrest. Tragically, the family's nightmare deepened when Crystal's father Tommy was killed in an unsolved shooting the following year. On the morning of November 19, 2016, 16 months after Crystal vanished, 54-year-old Tommy Ballard was shot and killed on his own property while preparing for a hunting trip. His 12-year-old grandson was also present with him at the time. Tommy had been looking through his rifle's scope when a single bullet struck his chest. Police quickly ruled out any possibility that the grandson could have fired the shot, and they confirmed Tommy's own gun had never been discharged. The angle of the shot suggested an unknown sniper. To this day, Tommy Ballard's slaying remains unsolved, and many in Bardstown believe it is no coincidence. Prosecutors have hinted the cases are linked. In fact, during Huck's trial, they revealed they're waiting on test results from a gun that might have been used to eliminate Tommy Ballard. In 2020, the FBI took over the Rogers investigation and executed fresh searches in Bardstown, hoping to find what local authorities couldn't. Agents dug for evidence in August 2020 and again in August 2021, even excavating a subdivision where Brooks Huck had built houses after Crystal's disappearance. The FBI revealed that an item of interest was recovered during the 2021 search, though they didn't disclose details. By 2022 and 2023, whispers of progress grew louder. Investigators quietly re-interviewed witnesses and applied advanced analysis to cell phone records and other digital data from 2015. With fresh eyes on the case, authorities started to zero in on a pair of local men, a father and son, who had been peripheral figures in the original investigation. Joseph Lawson, then 32, was an acquaintance of Brooks Huck. His father, Stephen Lawson, also had ties to Brooks' circle of friends. Rumors swirled that these two had helped Brooks cover up Crystal's disappearance, but for years no charges were filed against them either. Finally, a breakthrough came in the fall of 2023. In September 2023, a Nelson County grand jury indicted Joseph Lawson on charges of conspiracy and complicity in tampering with physical evidence. Notably, the indictment did not explicitly name Crystal Rogers as the victim, but the dates and details matched her case. This was the first time anyone had been officially charged in connection with Crystal's disappearance since she went missing. Less than 2 weeks later, the long-awaited moment arrived. Brooks Huck was arrested. On September 27, 2023, FBI agents and Kentucky State Police took Brooks into custody and charged him with Crystal's slaying and with tampering with physical evidence. He was 41 years old at the time and had been living under a cloud of suspicion for 8 years. At Brooks' arraignment, prosecutors revealed a stunning piece of evidence. They had recovered a firearm that Brooks' brother, Nick Huck, sold under a false name. Investigators believed that this could be the weapon used to kill Crystal's father, Tommy Ballard. This revelation linked the two Bardstown mysteries and suggested a broader conspiracy. A judge set Brooks Huck's bond at a staggering $10 million, reflecting the seriousness of the charges and the risk of flight or obstruction if he were released. The dominoes continued to fall, and by December 2023, Stephen Lawson, Joseph's father, was also arrested and indicted on charges of conspiracy. In other words, authorities alleged that Stephen Lawson helped plan or cover up the act, essentially accusing father and son of assisting Brooks Huck in the crime. It was now clear that investigators believed a group of individuals had coordinated to make Crystal Rogers, quote-unquote, disappear and evade justice for years. Hey everyone, it's Jimmy here, taking a quick moment to jump in to remind you to like and subscribe and to hit the notification bell. Doing these small things really helps my channel grow and stay healthy, ensuring I have a ton of time to devote to content creation. Also, remember to search up Lazy Chill True Crime wherever you get your podcasts and follow me there for more content. With all that said, let's get back to business. Even without Crystal's body, prosecutors pressed forward with a compelling circumstantial case. They argued that Huck premeditated the slaying to avoid losing custody of his young son, enlisting Joseph and Stephen Lawson to help cover it up. According to the prosecution, the Lawson men helped Huck dispose of evidence and stage Rogers' car on the roadside to make it seem she left town on her own. Cell phone data showed Huck lied about his whereabouts that night. Witnesses later testified they overheard the suspects making incriminating statements about, quote, getting rid of Crystal and her car. For 9 days in the summer of 2025, a Warren County jury heard testimony from nearly 50 witnesses, including Crystal's family members, Huck's employees, and various experts. Prosecutors presented evidence ranging from cell phone records and surveillance videos to witness accounts of Huck's and Lawson's incriminating statements. All this evidence was intended to show a pattern of lies and a carefully planned crime. They highlighted how Brooks and those close to him had allegedly obstructed the investigation from day one. They pointed to Nick Huck's interference and Anna Whiteside's silence, indicating a concerted effort at a cover-up after the fact. The defense, for its part, emphasized that there was no direct physical evidence linking the accused to a slaying. With no body, no crime scene, and no weapon, Brooks's attorneys argued that the prosecution's case was built on circumstantial clues and conflicting witness memories. They tried to cast doubt on witnesses and argued that the investigators' theories required stacking many unproven assumptions. Despite these efforts, After closing statements, the jury deliberated only about 4 hours before returning unanimous guilty verdicts on all charges for both Brooks Huck and Joseph Lawson. The guilty verdicts marked the end of a decade-long saga. Huck, now 43, was convicted of Crystal's slaying and of tampering with physical evidence, while Lawson, 34, was convicted of conspiracy and evidence tampering. The jury swiftly recommended the harshest penalties: life in prison for Huck and 25 years in prison for Lawson. Both men will be formally sentenced in August 2025, and by law must serve at least 85% of their terms before any possibility of parole. For Crystal's family, the moment was one of bittersweet relief. They wept and embraced in the courtroom, grateful that after 10 long years, someone was finally being held accountable. Crystal's mother, Sherry Ballard, smiled through tears, and her children said they had waited so long for justice. They still have one request of Huck: to reveal where Crystal's remains are, so that they can lay her to rest properly. Even without that answer yet, the family found comfort knowing Huck and Lawson will be behind bars and unable to hurt anyone else. With the convictions of Brooks Huck and the Lawson men, the Crystal Rogers case has finally, in one sense, been solved. Nearly a decade of uncertainty and pain for her family has culminated in accountability. Kentucky's Attorney General praised the work of the prosecutors and law enforcement and the tenacity of the Rogers family as the reason for this outcome. However, some very important questions still linger and need to be solved before this case is really truly closed out. In a very direct sense, the most pressing is the location of Crystal Rogers' remains. Despite extensive searches over the years, from cornfields to lakes, not a single trace of Crystal has ever been found. The hope is that with Brooks Huck now facing life in prison, he might eventually be compelled to reveal what he did with Crystal's body. I suspect that this won't be forthcoming anytime soon, despite the wishes of Crystal's family. The reason Huck likely hasn't revealed anything is simple: he continues to deny that he ever killed her. From the moment Crystal disappeared in 2015, he has stuck to the narrative that she left on her own, or that something unrelated happened to her after she left their home. Even during the trial, his defense hinged on the idea that there was no direct evidence linking him to a slaying. The defense also argued that there was no proof that she had even perished. That defense strategy, even after a conviction, helped set the stage for an appeal. If Huck were to suddenly admit involvement and disclose Crystal's location, it wouldn't only contradict his long-standing claims, it would also obliterate any chance of appealing the conviction on the basis of innocence. And make no mistake, appeals are coming. Huck's legal team has already signaled their intent to challenge the verdict. Common grounds for appeal could include disputes over the admissibility of certain witness testimonies, the reliance on circumstantial evidence, or procedural errors during trial. For an appellate court to take such challenges seriously, the defense needs to maintain the position that their client is innocent. Any admission from Huck, verbal or otherwise, could ruin that legal strategy. Another factor is that he may have had further accomplices involved in the disposal of her body, and the location of her remains may make this completely evident. Revealing the location of the remains could thus result in charges being filed against further associates, or perhaps family members. Given what we know of the evidence thus far, it's not hard to speculate on this sort of involvement. There's also a more chilling possibility that Huck views the location of Crystal's body as leverage. Though it's an unthinkable notion, some offenders use the knowledge of where a victim is buried as a final form of control, both over the victim's family and the legal system. Another unresolved thread is the slaying of Tommy Ballard. During Brooks Huck's trial, the prosecutor openly pointed out that Tommy's 2016 death may be related to Crystal's case. The recovered gun that may have been used to shoot Tommy is now undergoing forensic testing. If that firearm is conclusively linked, it could crack open a whole new chapter in this saga. Some believe that the same individuals who helped Brooks cover up Crystal's slaying might have also been involved in silencing her father. Law enforcement has not publicly named any suspects in Tommy's slaying, but the investigation remains active. Given that the FBI is actively investigating the case rather than the local police department, I have a feeling that we may actually see justice in that cold case as well. The saga of Crystal Rogers' disappearance is a poignant reminder that justice can take time, in this case a full decade, but persistence can pay off. What began as a baffling missing person case on a Kentucky highway in 2015 has culminated in a courtroom in 2025. This has provided a measure of justice for a young mother whose life was cruelly cut short, regardless of how many questions and unresolved mysteries continue to circle the case.